many of them we don't see them much, but very appreciative for them putting in a lot of efforts, right, to bring us many good activities. So what's the big idea? Okay, I think we need to mute somebody. Firas, can you help? So I can hear some background noises. Okay, so what's the big idea behind Brands for Good, right? We started off, and I think this sort of founding ideas is really the foundation of what we try to do, right? I think we all have God-given creativity to solve many problems. And some creation is more technically inclined, some are less, some is about business model. But whatever the intellectual property is, right, I think, right, it can be used for beyond just business, right? It can create the wider or the greater good, all right, as we put it. So that's what we hope to do, right? There are 4 aspects to it, right? The technology side, the business model, then we call it capital for good, leadership for good, right? And we want all this good to translate, right, into business, because that's more sustainable. So as we can see today, the rise of ESG, all right, environment, social, and governance. So we hope that as a business, and some call it, right, business as a force for good. You can create impact beyond just about business, right? You can create impact for the environment, create impact for the society, and also for governance, all right? So glad to have Prof. Sugwaning as our also our founding the chief judge, right, who helped us make sure that the judging process, the integrity of our award, right, is done in a proper manner. So in short, our mission is simple. 3 things we want to do, right? So as Brands for Good, we hope to help brands differentiate themselves effectively, especially via intangible assets. All right, create the Brands for Good story, make waves, all right, to inspire the world, and then it's about community, right? So we hope that as a community, we can find whatever help we need, right? So within the community, we're here together to serve each other. So let me talk about the 4C value proposition we bring, right? First is about competency. So I think within us, we have got many IP expertise, all right, both in from IPO Society and from IIPCC. So I hope that can really lend weight for you all to build your competency to grow your international business. Secondly, it's about the community, and we want to plug into more communities across ASEAN, all right, so that it is not just inward looking, but we can be inclusive as we expand. All right. Third is about capital. We also want to work with more fund houses, investors, all right, who believes in the ESG story and to pick the right champions, especially within the Brands for Good, among the Brands for Good champion, all right, to invest in. So these are so of course the winners are naturally, all right, potential champions that we hope to invest into. So these are all the other activities that we have done, right, to promote, to raise awareness of the champions, of what we do in Brands for Good, right? So this is the 1st of April launch event that we did with Prof. Lim Siong Guan and our former cabinet minister Lim Hui Hua. Right, and this is one activity that we did with the Cambodian Chamber of Commerce, I think pre-COVID. Okay, so these are some of our past activities. So how can you join us, right? So there are basically 5 ways, all right, through nomination. So please nominate yourself or companies that you know, whom you think that their business model really exemplify, right, the Brands for Good story. You can also come in as a sponsor. As you can see, we have many sponsors with us also, in our over the years. All right, then we have also started the Brands for Good Impact Fund, and so if you have a business model that needs to expand and you want to look for investors, do speak with us. We are of course looking for partners to work with. We can co-brand, we can co-organize activities together. And then of course, 5th area is our community leadership. So for example, we are now working with the Joo Chiat Community Center to run a legal clinic, and we hope to replicate this model more. We also have our social media channel on YouTube, so please follow us, and also on LinkedIn. All right. Okay, so in short, that's who we are, And we have a short video, you know, to sort of summarize also, you know, the call to action, you know, to call for more support, more people to join us. So maybe we can play the video.
What is your voice? If you don't have a voice to attract ethical customers, then your business is obsolete. Here's a special message for every busy SME entrepreneur who needs to build brand power into their business to attract new wealth amongst the growing ethical customers and markets, but can't seem to find the time. Hi, my name is Alan Ng. I am the co-chair for Brands for Good, and if you want to find help that you need to create new wealth amongst the growing ethical customers and markets, then pay very close attention. And if you are an SME business owner who wants to have a bigger impact on your business and profits, then this is exactly what you are looking for. I would like to introduce you to Brands for Good Nominations 2021. Brands for Good Nomination 2021 is a peer-to-peer business model evaluation with the industry's distinguished experts and academics, who evaluates whether your business deserves to be rebranded with a new ethical voice. This new ethical voice would then be crafted by our brand expert. We work with journalists and brand consultants so that they storytell your business for you, and how you do good as a business can be shared on the national newspaper such as the Business Times, online and in print. Brands for Good will do 5 important things for you. 1. To find your new ethical voice. 2. To get you recognized for the good that you have been doing, even if it is in your own small way. 3. To get yourself published on the Business Times, online and in print with our dedicated expert copywriters. 4. Stop figuring out what storytelling you need to tell about your business. In fact, people trust third party to tell your story even more than you can do on your own. And 5. Enjoy more support from our community of ethical business owners to rebrand your business into one that you deserve to have, and much more from our community. For the past 3 years, we have rebranded over 90 businesses to have their own unique new voice, creating legions of newfound customers and wealth. And the best and biggest feedback I get from these entrepreneurs coming up to me saying thank you for giving me a new voice. So, appeal to your ethical customers now and be the deserved leader in your industry with your own new voice. My name is Alan Ng, and I will help you with your new voice. So, who is Brands for Good nominations for? Well, it's for what we call the 1% crazy. It's for those who feel that their business is a calling and that they want to change the world. It's for those who know that they want to change the world today to impact their customers' lives and to provide for their loved ones. It's for those who are excited to better the world tomorrow for their actions, no matter how small it may be today. Now, if that sounds like you, then welcome to the 1% crazy. So if you are ready to take massive action and you want to have your new ethical voice to change the world, then make sure that you nominate your company for Brands for Good 2021 right now.
Well, thank you guys. I hope that sort of give you a comprehensive understanding of what we do in Brands for Good, and also a reminder for ourselves, right? that we are here to make the world a better place. So should I pass the time now over to Maybank? April, is it?
Yes.
Yes.
Give me a while.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, of course, we're going to pass over the mic to Maybank and who has been really one of our key and main sponsor for Brands for Good for over the last 4 years. So we do appreciate the time that they've had. And today, I think April has some quite exciting new things to announce beyond the usual solutions. So April, on to you.
Hi, everyone. Hold on. Let me try to show this. Can you all see? Good?
It's not full screen. Yep. Okay, we're good.
Can?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is April, coming from the Maybank SME team. I think for now, I'm alone here. I think the other colleague, Irina, is not in yet, but she will be in shortly. So basically here, we are here to share with you how we are involved in this Brands for Good journey, which we have been all along with them since, I think, for coming to 4 years already. So now let me start to introduce Maybank first. First, I'm sure all of you are very familiar with Maybank. Okay, we have been here since 1960s. Okay, currently we are already, I think 61 this year. Okay, we are also the largest financial services group in Malaysia. Currently, we are present in 18 countries as well as 18 branches here in Singapore to serve your banking needs. Okay, this year is actually our 4th year of partnership with Maybank, with Brands for Good already. So the reason why we are been with Brands for Good for all these years, because what Brands for Good is doing is definitely in line with our motto, which is humanizing financial services. And here we are today. I'm here to share with you how we are doing more than just being with Brands for Good. So now this year, to amplify our social efforts as well as empower the societies, we actually have launched this Maybank Momentum Grant last month. Okay, we aim to actually support small charities that are serving the unmet needs in Singapore. This is actually the first of its kind, if you have not heard this before, as we are here to actually provide capital and capacity to support all the small charities through the medium term by giving them an interest-free grant of up to 150K. Okay. Besides this, the monetary support, we're also here to help them by having strategy masterclasses for them, as well as consultation sessions to help all these charities build their stronger sustainability and capacity. And also, lastly, we also have created this special banking package for these charities, which we call it as a Maybank Community Package, which actually gives financial support at preferential rates, as well as some benefits to meet the unique needs of these charities. So having said so much, we have shared with you how we have given the support to all these charities. I'm actually pleased to share with you what we have for the local SMEs in Singapore. So of course, with the current pandemic ongoing because of COVID, right? Maybank Singapore is actually offering enterprise-assisted loans to help all these SMEs tide through the period. As you can see from the screen, right? We have all these existing products, which I'm sure most of you are very familiar with. The working capital, namely WCL, temporary bridging loan, TBR, as well as the trade loan. All these are enterprise-supported loans, and which these unsecured basis, meaning there's no collateral required. Financing amount is as stated here, which has been revised since April this year. Okay, it has been lowered from the previous higher limits, and these limits will actually offer on valid until 30th September this year. Okay, so this is the working capital. Okay, so just to share briefly okay, this working capital is just a loan that you can tap on if you require additional working capital to expand your business needs. To expand your business, example, you want to open a new outlet, you just require this additional support. So you can actually apply for this loan. This temporary bridging loan is actually special curated because of COVID, because of COVID, a lot of enterprises actually are badly affected because of COVID. So basically, this is to help businesses tide through this period. Example, if you have issues with employing people, you need to employ local residents to work for you. You may have incur higher costs. So all this could be partly supported by the bridging loan, which can be used for this purpose. Or even example, you have foreign workers, you need to spend more on your dormitory rental because they need to social distancing everything. So all this, also this loan can actually help to elevate all the additional costs that the enterprise may have to go through. So this is the trade loans. Trade loans is mainly for businesses if you are doing trading business. Example, you're buying and selling of goods, you need a bank to help you to finance your purchases. So Maybank can give you a trade line to help you to finance your imports while you can wait until you receive your payments from your customers, then you pay back to the bank. This is quite a standard trade line, but under enterprise. Lastly, we also do commercial property loan, which if you're actually keen to explore to purchase an industrial unit currently instead of paying the monthly rental, we also have that. We help you to finance your purchases. Of course, if you have existing loan with other banks that you are thinking of refinancing, or even do a cash out, or gearing to get some working capital out from the property that you already owned, we can also offer this financing for you. Okay, basically we grant we can run the property for own use or investment, and basically if you have anything, if you require any financing requirements, you can just come to us and we can see what we can explore for you. Okay, and lastly, this is our contact details. Okay, if you are keen to find out more about any of the products that we are offering, you can feel free to give us a call. My name is April. Okay, I have my colleagues Helmut and Guo Ying, who can also assist you in this all these inquiries. Yeah. So of course, if you are if as what Alan mentioned, okay, if you there will be actually a discount for existing customers who sign up for the Brands for Good. So for us, if you are yet to be a Maybank customers, you can sign up, and actually we can grant a discount for the membership fee for the Brands for Good. Yeah. Yes, that's all.
Thank you very much, April, and for sharing. Just now, I want to sort of give a quick shout out to a close friend and partner, someone that we've been working with over the last 1 year, and that's to Thomas from the ASEAN CSR network, who together with us, we've started the ASEAN Responsible and Inclusive Business Alliance, and then we've been supporting that campaign. So Thomas, are you there? Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, hey Thomas.
Okay.
Right. So I thought I'll give a little bit of airtime to Thomas as well to share a little bit about what Areba does. 2 minutes.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm sorry. Okay. Just trying to get. Okay. Are you getting my full screen?
Not yet.
Okay, just a bit. Let me just.
Yeah, we see your screen. You just
okay.
Slideshow.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm very delighted to be here and also to share some things about this initiative that we are working with Friends for Good and CA Asia. So I want to also congratulate them for this initiative, for recognizing businesses that are doing the right thing for the right reasons, and also Maybank for very innovative way of helping people during a crisis. So I'm just going to add on to this to say that we have this initiative in ASEAN called the Responsible Inclusive Business Alliance. It's an initiative between the ASEAN CSR Network, ASEAN Business Advisory Council, trying to get businesses to stand up for it. Why do we need this? It's because there is huge urgency. I think the whole crisis now has shown us that we need to act to help. And it is COVID-19 has shown the whole way of doing business is not good enough. And there's a lot of reaction from the ground. And governments are responding. I'm just cutting through the whole thing. And there's global trends. You know, ASEAN the businesses in ASEAN has made for 225 recommendations to ASEAN leadership to build back better ASEAN on it. And some of it is on healthcare, responsible business, creating green financing, addressing climate change, more than just doing this. And there's also a whole global push for businesses to be contribute to the well-being of sustainable development goals and things. So one of the things is the EU is going to make it mandatory for companies who want to export to Europe to talk about how they manage their human rights due diligence, how they manage their environmental impact. And therefore, with all these pressures, ASEAN government businesses, we need to react. I think governments, green plan, and more than that. So what we have done is there are lots of channels around it. So what does it really mean to be responsible in a very succinct sense? So we have actually came out with 7 principles that we talk about, all of us. These are values that we need to do. We talk about accountability, transparency, ethical behavior, respect for stakeholders, respect for the rule of law, respect for international, and to treat people with respect, dignity, and fairness. We also talk about what are the areas when you innovate. What we do, talk about governance. Unless you have good governance, you can't talk about anything else. To build trust, to build respect, and respect the environment. You talk about your labor standards, anti-corruption, human rights, consumer protection, and these are the key areas of community development, etc. The key areas, subject areas on responsible business for ASEAN. So we in Ariba have got 6 objectives. I'm not going to go through all of that, but I basically want to say the key thing is that we need to have a world where businesses do well by doing good. You don't just make money, but you make money the right way that can contribute to the well-being of things, so that we can have a whole society that changes the way that businesses conduct, people conduct, and our governments work together. So we can have prosperity for all and make businesses better. And so one of the ways that we are also looking at, in many ways, we want people to join the initiative. One of the initiatives that we have taken sight is to have this one on sustainable procurement. So if you're a guy in procurement, just buy from people who are in the same boat, supporting responsible, acting in a responsible way, that you make profits ethically, and you get this link up. And I think eventually we also ask you to join, because the more people join, we can create this through brands for good. And our collaboration, we have got 100 people with us. We are going to get more, and the bigger. We have been focusing for the early on smaller companies. Now we're going to build the bigger ones. So I know time is short. I am being very brief, but I'm available. And Alan, the guy the great film star and actor in the clip that you see, is also available to share about it, or Glenn, or any one of us. Contact us at any time, and we'll be happy to share with you journey and help you along the journey, and to really make your businesses profitable while doing good. Thank you.
Right, thank you everyone. Thank you, Thomas, for sharing and all that. Okay, so before we all obviously pass it on to the main show and the main highlight for today, and pass it on to Jeremy and Esther, I would like to actually take a photo shoot. So if I can get everyone to sort of turn on their cameras, and Firas, are you ready? Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so if you can get everyone to sort of turn on your cameras, and then if you can put up a thumbs up so that we can sort of see your thumbs, and we can have a quick photo shoot.
Okay, hang on, ready, smile, 1, 2, 3. Fantastic.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so over to you. Without further ado, of course, I would like to introduce an old friend, Jeremy and Esther, who we've been working with closely for the last 3 years, actually. Esther, as I've shared earlier on, is with Harry Elias, and I think they both have introduction slides there, so I won't steal their thunder. So Jeremy, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon. So today, the next 1 hour, we're going to focus on this topic, IP commercialization. Maybe I'll let Esther introduce herself first.
Okay, thank you very much, and really appreciate the time taken for everyone to join us for this afternoon's session. I think Jeremy and myself actually already shared somewhat this contents of the workshop. If you tune in to our previous, we did a workshop as well in the afternoon session during the Brands for Good launch. So if any of you have attended that, do bear with us, and perhaps it may be, somewhat to refresh your memory. And if you had questions, after the sessions that we ran the last round and you didn't have the opportunity to ask those questions, I think you can ask those questions today, and we'll try our best to answer your queries, whatever that you have. So just a slight introduction about myself. My name is Esther. I am currently the head of IP in the Inherit Alliance Partnership, and I'm also the president for the Singapore chapter of the International Intellectual Property Commercialization Council. So our HQ is actually in Hong Kong, and we do have chapters all across the world, mainly in Asia, and also a few individual chapters actually in the US, and also in Canada. I'm also the Deputy Vice President for the Singapore Digital Chamber of Commerce, and as you all know, the co-chair for the Brands for Good movement. And I also sit on the Anti-Counterfeiting East Asia and Pacific Subcommittee of INTA, and I've been in this field for over 8 years, counting. So today, that's a little bit about myself, and of course, by day I practice intellectual property, and as a side, I also help out a lot with Brands for Good and trying to raise awareness about intellectual property. So over to you, Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy here. I have 4 hobbies and 1 full-time job. My 4 hobbies is basically training, consulting, entrepreneurship, and investing. My full-time job is parenting because I have 2 children at home. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. So that's me, pretty short. So let's begin our workshop. Esther? Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're just going to focus, before we actually start, I just wanted to also highlight to you, where is Singapore as a nation going? And it's interesting to know, if you have not known, they recently, I think it was last month on World IP Day, released a Singapore IP Strategy 2030 blueprint, basically blueprint for the next, I'd say 10 years, right? And what they want to achieve in relation to IP. And you will note that this is a sort of a summary. You can actually go online and search for the full executive summary. But there are 3 focus points that the government wants to achieve in the next 10 years. One is strengthening Singapore's position as a global hub for IA and IP, IA being intangible assets and artificial intelligence, intangible assets and IP, and also to attract and grow innovative enterprises using IA and IP. And the last one is to develop good jobs and valuable skills in IP. So I think in short, I think being a hub, they want to achieve quality filings being done by Singapore, and I think our IP office, IPOS, is actually ranked sort of the #1 in the world in terms of the quality of objections and filings and actually registrations, and in terms of being innovative in things that they are doing for the community. For example, they also recently launched an app that allows you as a brand owner to file your own filings and track your own applications. And I think there is also an intention to probably in the future go into platforms, and they probably will come up with more platforms that may be able to access that make IP more accessible for owners. But let's see, that they really haven't really sort of launched that yet. But I think that's in the pipeline. And I think the more important point that we want to take note is actually the second point, which is, let me see. under the business category being attracting and growing innovative enterprises using IA and IP. So in short, in summary, there are 3 points that the government would like to focus on. This is one, providing IA and IP and technology platforms and connections to facilitate IP transactions, and also to increase transparency and disclosure around these transactions, because right now I think information are rather scarce. There is also no regulatory or any sort of rules or regulatory rules in place in regards to IP transactions. They are rather loose here and there. And I think they also want to encourage more recording of IP transactions and also I think offer some incentive to companies that may be patent heavy, or they have a lot of dormant IPs lying around, to be able to offer that to the community and be able to license out or do some JV or collaboration within the community. And I think also they want to strengthen the IP valuation ecosystem. That has been something that has always been in the talks, but has never been quite crystallized. And there's only 1 or 2 case study, that success stories out there that we have heard about. And it's going to be interesting to see what on the government side they are going to do about how they want to strengthen this ecosystem, and perhaps work with the banks to come up with a viable model of actually evaluating your IP. Yeah, so then that brings you to the third part, which is the job skills and all. They hopefully, through many of the more courses that they're going to roll out, they will bring up more competent people in this area. Okay, can we move forward to the next slide? So, what are actually tangible, intangible assets or IP? I'm just going to go through briefly the different types of intangible assets. So intangible assets basically are assets that are not physical in nature. Obviously, you may be familiar with tangible assets, which are like your property that you can actually, there's valuation to it, your inventories. Those are tangible assets. But intangible assets are assets that are the things that you create, and you come out with things that are not, you can't really touch and feel, right? But they are also valuable. And they can include former IP such as trademarks, patents, copyrights, trade secrets, as well as, your customer list and so on and so forth. So this is a slide to say, I invented fire, but now everyone is using it for free. In hindsight, maybe my first invention should have been intellectual property law. Right, so something as simple as that, and if you don't protect it, everyone can actually use it for free, and that's why this whole a regime of IP comes into place. And that's to put measures in place so that the creator of the original invention will be able to commercialize it and have exclusivity for certain periods, depending on the type of IP that we are talking about. So defining intangible assets, we can talk about, we can sort of break it down further into a few things. You have your intellectual capital, which are all knowledge-based resources that companies can access and use. These are undocumented. These are your ideas, your concepts, your skills and your attributes, your relationships, insights, problem solving, your methods, and all that. So that's categorized, under your people and who you hire, right? Because they are the ones that are going to bring in the ideas. They are the ones that are going to bring in the skills required. And those are your intellectual capital. And those, can't be protected, but they are still your intangible assets. Then you have your intellectual assets, which are identifiable, non-monetary and non-physical assets that your companies own. And these are things that you can document down. Let's say your SOPs, your data, your information, your unregistered inventions, your agreements, your licenses, and all that. And so we categorize that under documentation. And then there are assets where we come to intellectual property, where there's a proper framework where you can sort of register some of your stuff for protection. These are intangible assets which can be registered and protected. And we're talking about your patents, your trademarks, your copyrights, your registered designs, trade secrets, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the examples of intangible assets. We have your brands, your trademarks, your market, your customer database, your tech, your software, your permits, copyright materials, which can all go under different headers of IP, and some may be more than one. So it depends really on the strategy that you are going to employ, but these are all examples of IAs. So a brief introduction of what IP are, just so if some of you don't really know what the different categories are, let's proceed. The first one, let's talk about patents. Patents are actually exclusive right for an invention. They can be a new product or process or a technical improvement. These are often, actually most of IPs are jurisdictional based. And once you file a patent, you actually need to fully disclose your invention. And it needs to be enabling disclosure, which means that whatever claims that you disclose to the public, you can have a protection exclusivity for a certain number of period of time, which is up to 20 years. And then it's free for everyone to use. And this is to encourage innovation, right? So, so that people can innovate on each other, and you as the creator, you get to enjoy the first 20 years exclusivity to commercialize that particular invention. And then whoever else invents on it can then claim also a patent for the innovation. What are trademarks? Trademarks are visually perceptible mark capable of distinguishing one's goods and services from another. The requirements are it must be distinctive, so it cannot be something that everyone else is using and it is descriptive of your products and services. It must not be deceptive or contrary to law or morality, so like obscenity and all that, those kind of marks, you won't be able to register those. Or if it's a mark that's confusingly similar or identical to existing marks that have been registered, those are also marks that you might find quite difficult. So if you have a rather descriptive mark or a rather sort of more common English words, the tendency of it being having cited marks are also pretty much higher. But if, for example, if you have a very distinctive marks that are like an invented word like Nike that has no meaning, then the chances of it being able to register is also higher. So these are some of the examples of trademarks. You have your words and your letters and your numerals, your drawings and your colors and your pictures. Some other non-traditional trademarks that we're talking about can be 3D marks, audio marks. There's a particular jingle that you have, and also packaging. What we can register the get up of that particular packaging, because sometimes people recognize your brand by a certain way of get up of your packaging. Then next we have copyrights. What are copyrights? Copyrights are actually creative works, being a literary, a dramatic, or musical and artistic work. There are two parts. One is your creative works, and then there are also your entrepreneurial works, being sound recordings, your cinematographic films, television broadcasts, and cable programs. So copyrights actually protect the expression of ideas into material form. So oftentimes, you have an idea. Ideas are technically not protected. They fall under the intellectual capital category. But the moment you reduce it into material form, that's when copyright is able to subsist in whatever form that you do. So, for example, if you have a business plan, your business idea, you crystallize it down to a business plan. That particular document then gains a copyright for it. And the requirement is there's no formal requirement to file protection in most countries. It subsists the moment you created it. So it's important to tag your date of creation so that if there is any infringement that happens, you will be able to show very clearly the date of creation. But in certain countries, there are avenues to file a recordal or to apply for copyright, for example, in China. So it really depends. But if not, there are many of the majority countries are parties to what we call the Berne Convention, where if your copyright subsists in Singapore naturally, it will also subsist in those countries that are party to the Berne Convention. And the term is obviously up 70 years after the date of publication or the death of the author. Then we have your registered designs. So this one, more towards if you have a particular design that you might want to protect, that is sort of exclusive to you. It could be a shape or a configuration, a pattern or an ornament applied to any object by an industrial process. The requirement, it must be new and novel and capable of industrial application, meaning you can mass produce it. And the term for registered designs, you can renew up to every 5 years, up to a maximum of 15 years. So these are some of the examples that you can see that you can actually register as a design registration. Then you have your trade secrets, which are confidential information that gives a business trade advantage. So such information you don't want your competitors to know, because if they get to know some of this information, you will give them a competitive edge over, or head start, right, over for them in their business. So some examples are your business plans, your strategy, your IP strategy plans, or your expansion plans, your customer list, your software, your source codes, your financial statements, and so on and so forth, and your training materials and manuals, that you come up with all this hard work, and you don't want your competitors to just, maybe one of your employees leave and take all these things and then go to a competitor, and they can use it to their advantage in that sense. So these are what we call your trade secrets, and the consideration that you need to identify these things as part of your internal process and procedure. You should make a written record, and you should make it very clear to your staff that these are trade secrets, and make sure that there are trade secret clauses and confidentiality clauses in your employment contracts. And if you are going to disclose any of these to a third party, you should always sign a non-disclosure agreement and tighten your internal policies on these matters. Yeah. So these are some of the IP protection options. They are your usual traditional protections that I think we've kind of touched. You can file a patent for it, you can file a trademark for it, or a copyright or a design. Then there's also the non-traditional sort of solutions that you can find. For example, IPCC, as part of what we want to do, because trade secrets are usually what we call the last IP that is not really regulated. There is no formal avenue to register or record your trade secrets, and often it's a secret. So if there is a leak and we need to go to court and enforce it, how do you show that you actually had this data in the first place? Because it's a secret, and you obviously don't want to disclose it in public documentations and in court, right? So we have come up with a solution, an alternative. It's like a timestamp, and it's something similar to, I think, WIPO Proof as well that came out, that you can actually document and timestamp certain things, and then they will issue you a key, sort of like a thing that you can match using this particular timestamp, and that is unique only to the content that you have uploaded sort of into the system. So this will be useful if you go to court and you need to enforce it and to show that you actually have this particular information without actually disclosing those information.
Oh, yep. Maybe do you want to take a pause for any of you want to ask any question?
Yeah.
Ask Esther.
You can ask in the chat.
Yeah, we are going to break this up to a few sections. So Esther will cover the first session about the 5 kind of IPs. I'm going to touch on why IP important. And followed, I will share with some case study how to go about it. And finally, the last session. So if you have a question, you can ask now. So it's easier when the thing is fresh in your mind. If not, can I ask Esther some question?
Sure.
If I come up with a good idea today, and I think this idea I can raise fund tomorrow, it's a patent I want to file. So how do I go about it straight away? I can do it and can start raise fund tomorrow.
You can also file a provisional patent if you really have an idea. You don't have to do the full disclosure of the thing. And sort of like you choke first in a way. And then you sort of got 1 year to sort of sort those things out. And I think if you don't have yet, it's very, very important and crucial to also at the very least sign an NDA with the investors that you're going to reveal this information from. But I think a provisional patent would be a useful tool that you can consider.
How long you need to file it immediately?
You can file it immediately. There's nothing really much that you need to. I think it's only just an abstract.
I see.
Of the summary.
And then how much will it cost?
Cost, I have to check.
Okay, by the way, there's a practice in Silicon Valley. Let's say I cannot concept tonight. I sure will file for a provisional license, and next day I'll talk to some angel investor. I'll raise funds straight away, and that's how they practice in Silicon Valley. So you can see how fast they do things.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else has any question for Esther before I go on to the next part?
But provisional patents are not only in certain countries they are available. Yeah. So just take note of that.
There are some questions being posted in the chat. I think Richard has a question. Richard, would you like to sort of voice your question?
Hi, Esther.
Yes.
Right, just on a quick one. You mentioned about trade secret, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, trade secret is something that is not being documented and things that is not being seen in the public.
Correct.
Yeah. So if this is a trade secret, right? Does it mean that another party who have no affiliation with the imagine it's myself, right, have the same idea, we cannot claim that we have the rights or originality?
No that one, because so there's two different things, right? So if you created it and it's yours, then you own
assuming that somehow rather the secret was being leaked out somewhere.
Yeah, so if there is a leak, then that's where the dispute happens. Then you have to then prove that you had it earlier and someone took it from you and leaked it,
and
right?
The justification is that how have we say that it's been leaked, assuming I have a
there are many scenarios. Yeah, it could be someone had access to it, or usually is insider job right?
So there's a lot of research.
So it all depends on how well you are managing it internally. So I think that's where I'm coming at, having your internal policies and how you manage your trade secrets.
Yeah.
Because it's inevitable. Things like that do get leaked out. But how are you managing it internally? That's how you need to come up with a framework to protect. And there's no foolproof. There's no foolproof protection, but at the very least, you can manage it internally. So some people break it up. There are many ways to do it.
Yes.
Depending on what.
Yes. All right. Thanks.
Okay, I think the next question is, do IPIA protection laws differ from countries to countries, their international legal framework? Okay, so generally they are what we call agreements, right? So for trademarks, there's the TRIPS agreement, and for like copyrights, there's the Berne Convention, and I would say majority of it is the same because they do need to confer to a certain standard, but there are certain local law practices, and different laws that may differ. So in short, it is not the same, but at the very least, the standards that they adopt are the same, so long as they are parties to this international convention agreements and so on and so forth. So so an example, China has a very peculiar system where they have, once they issue an office action, you only have like 15 days or something like that. Then you cannot extend the time. But whereas other countries they have, and some countries recognizes, black and white mark protection to cover all colors, but some don't. So small things like that would affect how you would then register your marks in a particular country.
Can I bring up one thing to Richard? Just sort of mention earlier on. I also sit on the IIPCC board, so that's why I'm sort of familiar. Esther shared about the IKR, which is what does IKR stand for, Esther?
Some knowledge rights, I think.
Repository, right? Intellectual knowledge repository or something.
Repository, yes, yeah.
Exactly. So IKR was built on a blockchain with the idea of being able to register your trade secrets. Not copyrights. You can also register copyrights. So as Esther was sharing earlier on, there are no formality to registering copyrights and trade secrets. So IKR was actually designed around the idea. Not that I'm pushing IKR to everybody here, but there are informal ways of actually protecting certain trade secrets. And what they do is you take a photo of your trade secret, then it's
Upload it.
encrypted into a blockchain, not the entire trade secret. So your trade secret is still held by you, but what is uploaded is actually a key, which is registered into the blockchain, and therefore becomes an identifying mark that identifies that you own this particular trade secret.
Yeah.
So it's actually useful for fundraising and also for other purposes to actually tell others that you have ownership of such trade secrets as well.
Yeah, so it's like you go to a locker, you put your stuff in the locker, and the things in the locker is still yours, but then you are given a key to the locker, and only you can open it and identify it. So it's something similar to that you can, you have a unique identifier that you can match it.
Okay.
Maybe a last question to Esther. How do you decide between going patent and invention or keep it as a trade secret?
I think it depends on whether you want to disclose it to the public or not. And sometimes in terms of maybe formula-wise, if you are not able to further innovate on it, you might want to keep it as a trade secret. Or if you feel that, sometimes keeping it as a trade secret, which means that you don't lose your exclusivity. You can continue to do it without, managing it internally well, and you don't need to pay a fee to maintain it. At the same time, you can keep it. So it actually really depends on the intention, because I have certain clients who come up with they have like formula for certain chemistry type of certain things, and if that certain formula is very difficult to patent, after they do the search and everything, and they decide that it's going to be quite a hurdle to do that, they will rather keep it as a trade secret and operate from within.
Yeah, I think for those that can be easily re-engineered, it's better to protect under patents.
Yes,
if the product will flow outside.
Right.
Otherwise, you can keep it as trade secret as well. So can make it longer, right?
Yes.
Okay, any question? If not, I will touch on the second part. Okay, let me just go on the second part. Then at the end, you also can ask questions. I'm going to elaborate a bit on why are intangible assets as well as intellectual property important. Okay, first thing is basically they boost your company valuation. Yeah, and intangible asset can be treated as part of the balance sheet. This is a beautiful thing. For example, Coca-Cola, right? You look at Coca-Cola, the assets actually is about 10 billion only, the tangible asset. But look at intangible asset portion as part of the balance sheet is about 26 billion. It's even bigger of the whole assets. And there's you can see that the value, it actually helps the company boost the valuation, especially your company when you are doing fundraising. Later, I'm going to share with you 2 case studies. In fact, from almost nothing, just idea, concept, and they build up to almost hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of valuation, and use it actually to raise a lot of funds from the market, and they use the money and then to build the eventual product for them. So first part I can see there is very important. It helps you to boost your company valuation. That's the first part. And second part, in fact, actually they often this intangible asset, they make up the majority of the valuation. You can see the S&P 500, right? In the past, in 1975, you can see bigger component, 83% are the physical asset, and very small little part on the intangible side. But as the year comes by, I can see today, 90% of their valuation are basically intangible asset, except 10%. May I guess? Okay, I prefer to have interaction with you guys. Let me throw you some questions. May I guess what's the total market cap of all the listed company in the whole world? Anybody want to guess? Guess correctly, Glenn will give you a cup of beer now. Virtual beer.
Okay, we'll send over.
Or you can come over the L9. Anybody would like to try that? The whole world, the market cap. There are about 100,000 companies listed in all the different exchange. Okay, the total market cap. Okay, I think I'll win a bit already. 88 trillions. Okay, 88 trillions. May I guess also the market cap of all the US listed company in US? Just US companies. Or company that list in US market. Glenn, would you like to try that?
No, if you guys are shy, you all can always type it into the chat.
Yeah, type it in. Yeah. Anybody want to do that? Nobody.
Then Jonathan Yeo has touched in 50 trillion.
50 trillion.
Yes, US alone has 50 trillion. I think just Google, you find the answer already, right? 50 trillion. 50 trillion out of the 88 million. Then you look at the 38 trillion outside of US. Actually, majority of outside US are all tangible assets. If you look at their market balance sheet, except US. US, by and large, a lot of things are in the intellectual asset. That's why you can see the market is so rich and everybody now want to go US for listing. Then you look at whole world, the top 100 companies. May I guess how many of them belong to US company?
60%, 70%?
Not so high. 40 companies are the US company. And this 100 company alone are producing about 14 trillion of the worldwide, the goods and services. You can see how big. And when you look at all their assets, very, very small. Except those mining area.
Do you also think is it because we are in the advent of digitalizing everything, and that's why intangible assets are higher, because brick and mortar businesses are no longer there.
Yeah,
being a lot more in a digital space.
Yeah, now with the Industrial 4.0, that's why actually disrupting the whole world economy. So we see that actually more and more people are going to rely on IP, intellectual property. And when you look at this 100 company alone, they are already producing about 14 trillion of the worldwide goods and services. Okay, by the way, the worldwide GDP is about 88 trillion also, about 88. Yeah. In 2019, and 2020 was a bit bad because of the COVID-19, about 83 trillion. This year, I think we're going to hit about 90 trillions. But I can see the 100 companies are producing 14 trillion. And when you look at this 100 companies, most of them are basically very rich in IP. What does it mean for all the SME in other part of the world? We will suffer a squeeze in the next 10 to 20 years if we don't harness IP. We don't take IP on and to scale up our business to be at the world stage. You squeeze up with this 100 company or 1,000 company. And that's the key, I think, Singapore company like us, I think we should start to think about IP and how to use IP to scale up. And later I'll share with some case study. I think it was very interesting, very creative idea created by those founders. Okay, then you can see IP can help you generate a lot of things. Yeah, example, franchising royalty. Okay, okay, again, a few questions. I'm sure you watch those. There are a lot of characters, right, in the whole world, right? May I guess what the 5 most richest the media company in the whole world, and what they earn from franchising only. Okay, I give you the first one. First one is Pokemon. Pokemon alone every year generate about 100 billion worth of revenue. That's 100 billion, not 100 million, it's 100 billion. Yeah, how about the rest? They just create value from franchising that Pokemon, the characters, that's it. And that's worth $100 billion. Let me guess what other characters are generating a lot of money.
Hello Kitty.
Yes, second is Hello Kitty, 80 billion. Third is Winnie the Pooh, 80 billion. Disney and Friends, about 80 billion. Star Wars is about 70 billion. Okay, may I guess Singapore GDP? What's Singapore total GDP? We have 4 million, we almost have about 4 million citizens, right? We are working very hard, right? Almost 24 hours a day. So how much do we produce at the end of the day in totality? Anybody? Okay, we are doing about 300 billion USD, 300 billion. Compared to this 5 companies, this 5 companies, you add them up, how much is that? It's almost 500 billion. 500 billion. Go and count how many employees they hire compared to Singapore with 4 million people. So you can see how important that if you can harness IP, it can transform Singapore totally. Yeah, just let it sink in your head. And you look at when this Japanese, okay, first two are Japanese, Pokemon and Hello Kitty. How did they come to that design that character? A lot of times it's part of their inspiration. Sit down for a few days, something spark, and it created that character. After it's just all about how to scale it up. Doesn't sound to be very difficult, right, Esther? Glenn? Well, we are stalling a time away. Build the brick and mortar bit by bit, At the end, we are lose behind these five characters. They are generating almost 500 billion, while we are just 300 billions. Okay, you can see IP actually has a lot of it can create a lot of business benefit. You can see it helps you to create multiple revenue streams. It can also create a lot of positive customers and investor perception. Company with IP and without IP, you can see there. You look at all the fund, right? Because they are rich in IP, therefore a lot of investors are putting money in them. Yeah, they know that their solution and services are being protected by IP. It's very hard for people to get into their area because this strong IP protection. If you infringe their IP right, what do you think will happen to you? You pay a lot of money when you infringe their patents, their trademarks, and so forth. And of course, it also helps you to improve your business model, product, and processes. Later, we'll touch a bit on that. So these are you can actually derive a lot of business benefit by owning IP. That's why it's very important. I hope you get a sense of importance here, especially now we are moving into this digital age. By the way, we all heard about Industrial 4.0, right? Do you know that Industrial 5.0 is coming soon? And it's within the next 5 to 10 years. Industrial 5.0 is basically the merger of infocom technology, ICT on one side, the other side will be the biotech technology. So when these two merge, right, I think a lot of things are going to change totally. And the job, the kind of IP is going to be very exciting for all of us. And it's a space that you should actually get in and explore. Okay, I'll stop here. Any question before I share with you some case studies? Okay, since it's afternoon, Friday afternoon, I'm going to take it easier. So more interaction, so we exchange ideas as well.
What do you, okay, I asked a question.
Sure.
I think from your background of, looking at investors, what are the things that in relation to IP that investors are very particular about?
Okay, in fact, okay, maybe I use the next case study to share with you why investor is very, very particular about. Okay, let me just share with this, the next part. I'll share with 2 case studies, then Esther will take over to share with the 2 case study. Okay, let me share with this case study on this company called Paradigm Biopharma and why investors are very particular about their IP. Okay, this company is called PAR. What happened is it started by a guy called Paul Rennie. Then about 10 years ago, he discovered he has this thing called osteoarthritis. And he joined a company called Mesoblast. Mesoblast is basically a stem cell therapy company. And he was thinking, hey, can stem cell help me to cure my osteoarthritis? But unfortunately, it didn't. So he searched the whole market to see, is there any other drug that can treat his osteoarthritis? And he came to one drug called PPS, pentosan polysulfate sodium. And he actually used an injectable for inject into him. And what happened is, the pain all disappeared. And he's able to start to walk. And this PPS actually is being sold by a company called Johnson & Johnson for the last 70 years to treat kidney inflammation. So once he discovered it, what he do is he quickly go and patent it. He spent a bit of money, patent it for other indications. So PPS for basically osteoarthritis. And how he convinced all the patent office to let him get a patent is he also put in the dosage, different dosage. Instead of oral, right? Johnson & Johnson's formula is basically you take it orally. For him, he patent as an injectable form for basically osteoarthritis. At the same time that he only applied to patients with the bone marrow lesion in the knee. So with these two, I think he added on, he successfully patented the whole thing in those key countries, Japan, US, Europe. So once he had that, what he do is he basically take the whole thing to go IPO. He founded in this PPR in 2014. He go for IPO. And what happened that he actually used it to raise a lot of money. So that now he's taking the company through for all the clinical trial. He's entering into we call phase 3 clinical trial now. And the company now worth about 500 million. And he has not been generating revenue at all for the last 10 years at all. But the company is worth 500 million. And what he do is he tell the market, OA market is huge. The whole market is about $4 to $10 billion, right? And he has this unique solution, IPPS. So what do you think investor will do? So people pay attention to this now, the IPPS now, their protection. If you don't protect it properly, other player will come to the market and pick up my market share, right? Yeah, but because it's very well protected in all the regions, people are willing to put value there at 500 million. So this is my first case study. Yeah, at the same time, they're also quite smart. They actually tie up with the company that produce the PPS. So sometimes you don't need physical asset. You can actually outsource a third party, but they lock the manufacturer into a exclusive manufacturing arrangement for all the key market that they are going into. And this arrangement is not only 5 years or 10 years, it's going to last about 30 years. So you can see how smart he is, right? He just played the IP game. So in total, he raised about 125 million since IP in 2014. So there's some detail here. All this in the note, you can read up. So you can see the whole step he took through is basically he repurposed IPPS for osteoarthritis. He raised about 120 million. He has already finished phase 2 last year. So now he's actually applying for phase 3 with FDA. And he planned to commercialize in 2023-24. Once he commercializes it, this company can go even much higher. And he use the proceed to actually look for he intend to look for 3 other repurposed drugs. Of course, you patent them. So that's this case study. I hope I answered the question, Esther, from that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, this IP thing is constantly argued in the forums. So I was in one forum, so they always argue about this. Why it was so much? What are they protected? Whether the big boy along the way may snatch over their IP as well. But what he does is craft a very good message, and he answers all the investor questions and doubt in their mind. Okay, second case study is about this company called Rex International. Same thing, when the company started, they don't have any assets. What they have is a software only. Yeah, called virtual drilling technology. They use a software to actually interpret seismic data to determine whether there's any oil underground, offshore, inshore. Yeah, just a piece of software. And so this company is a UK company. They took it to Singapore for listing. That was in 2013, 2014. Then because at the time, a lot of people saw this is the first time a company is able to use some kind of software to detect oil underground. And at the time, the failure rate for a conventional company to look at oil is very, very high. Usually you drill, when drilling comes to drilling, it will cost a lot of money. Every time you drill a well, it costs you about $5 million. And sometimes you drill 20 wells to discover oil, and that can cost you $100 million. So at the time when people look at the software, it was so powerful because they claim the accuracy is almost 80%. So markets really to actually give them about almost 400-500 kind of valuation. And they were able to raise about 200 million from market during that July 2013 to 2014. And they use money to do what? They go and buy this concession license. So now today, actually, they use a software, raise fund, and then convert into money to buy oil field concession. So now they have quite a lot of this physical asset in the oil area. So you can see it's very interesting, right? And they start to, of course, generate money. Yeah? They start to sell some of the oil asset. For example, in 2019 for 45, one small little oil asset for 45 million. And their oil field just start to produce oil in April 2000, now reaching about 12,000 barrels per day. So you can see that's how they, from nothing, only a piece of software that beat to today where they are. Today, their market is still about 200 million. Okay, so these are 2 case studies shared with you. Esther, you can talk about third one now.
Yeah, so I think the 2 case studies that Jeremy shared are actually more pattern centric, right? And invention. And the next
and a bit of trade secret as well. And
trade secrets as well, yes.
Yeah.
Next one I'm going to share is something similar to sort of, someone asked about the media character, right? And I think the message, like what we're trying to say, is you don't need to be an expert in IP because there are experts out there that will be able to help you. But I think as brand owners or as business owners, you need to understand the basics building and the building blocks of IP and how you can actually integrate them into your business strategy, and be able to use that to understand how are you going to leverage basically on your IP assets and commercialize it to maximize the value. So we have this is a Malaysian company actually, and they came up with, they are an animation studio. They came up with a character called Upin and Ipin. I'm not sure if you all know this, but it wasn't a big hit in Malaysia because I think obviously sometimes Malaysians, being Malaysians, we don't really support local that much, unfortunately. But they came up with these characters, and they were just these 2 characters being kampong boys, and they had a whole series of cartoons based out of this storyline, right? and apparently it went viral and was a hit overseas. And so being an animation studio, what they did was they encouraged their creators to create IP in the form of animated media. And with a strong branding strategy, they actually built up a strong IP portfolio. They obviously registered their trademarks and have all their characters copyrighted and all that. And what was interesting was they went on from just being a studio company, because they have this asset that was thriving, right, and turning to gain traction and gain value. They went from being a series, they went to movie making, and from movie making they then move on to merchandise, and also they move on to F&B. And that's how you see why Pokemon and all that, because there are so many streams and revenues of how they could actually license out their character and to many different streams of income. And they're also even talking about a possible theme park, right? And so that's why you have your Cartoon Network theme park and all that. Those are all, very different from what they initially set out to become. And because of that, they had to set up several, other subsidiaries, their wholly owned subsidiaries, to manage these kind of things. Because of that as well, they were able to tie through, because being just a pure animation studio, they went through the usual route. They were not having enough income monthly, right, from their streams of income. Their television streams alone also was not enough to keep the studio afloat. But because of all these different streams of income, they were able to spin off and pivot their business model and use this to their advantage. Yeah. And because of that, now they attract other partnerships, and everybody want to come and talk to them. And so if you see a lot of the case studies, even Singapore, there are many poster stories about Masai Sports. This guy that had there was a success story in the poster boy for IP valuation, right? Andy, I met the owner. He's very down to earth, but he's very smart. He went overseas and actually bought over a particular technology for shoemaking, and with a strong branding strategy, he took it back. The company was almost I think was almost going nowhere already. He took it. He developed a IP strategy out of it. And then got it valued, and then got the banks to accept the IP valuation, had loan, and then now it's running to become. And of course, he's a serial entrepreneur. He doesn't just have one business. So, but because he understood the IP game, and there are many more stories like that. You can all go and read, even for I think the company for Kodak as well. They were downstream, and then they went and looked into what they had, as a company, all their dormant IPs, right? Even though they had a lot of dormant IPs that they, when they were still high in the age where those kind of cameras were in trend. They had a lot of IPs that they never used, and then when the company wasn't doing well because of digitalization and everything, going to digital cameras and films are no longer in place, they found different uses that they could spin off from their dormant IPs, and then they use that to leverage it and to license it out to other companies that are not even in they're not even in the film or camera space, right? That you will be surprised how technologies and things that you have are able to be used in different spheres of industries, even cross industries as well. So I think that's very interesting. And if you know how to play that game, you will know how to maximize the value of what you have, and not just think outside the box, or not just think within what you have. Yeah.
So what you say here is very interesting. It's a similar in a drug case where these days a lot of pharmas, they don't invent new drug anymore. What they do is they look for existing drug and see whether can they apply for other diseases.
Yeah.
And if you can discover that, you can actually file for patent as well.
Yeah.
And because these are established drugs, right, the safety is much better compared to a new drug.
Exactly. So even in the US, I think there are some companies who just purely set up to just do R&D and file patents. That's all they do, right? Yeah. And then they just need one or two that are really good, and they sell it off, or they JV, and then they get the streams of income, licensing and all that, because then they don't want to be the one that commercializes it. So there are many business models that you can think of, and be creative in the way looking at leveraging this. So you could be a serial entrepreneur even in collecting IPs, right? Or you could set up yourself to be an IP bank, and then you want to loan. So there are many ways. And as a company, sometimes you don't even have the time, because R&D takes a long time, right? You may not have the time to go into R&D. You may not have the resources, right, to go into R&D. And you need to look out in the space out there. There are many resources now and many platforms and many IP banks available. You might possibly just want to say, look up for these things, go and pitch. And then, we have a partner that does IP bank. They run IP Hatch every year. And they open up IPs from Panasonic, Nokia, big companies, and having a partner with them also lends strength to your name and to your company in branding, right? When you put yourself out there, you say, this is my latest product. The technology behind it is actually Panasonic's technology or Nokia technology. It gives you an edge, right? And immediately there's already a trust there, because people know these brands out there. So that's also another example of how you can leverage on it. So closer to home, I want to share this case study about this UGS gas company. I think many of you might have seen this, because we all use gas, right? And by what they did was they were a normal brick and mortar company. They started off as an SME, but I think up to one point they realized that they needed to do something to rebrand, to have a refresh of their branding. Otherwise, they're going to just continue to be that stale company that just offer gas and like that. If you're too comfortable, you will either stay status quo or you will just decay at the end of the day. You have to always look out for what is the global trend and get into the game, right? And so this company, what they did was they differentiate their corporate identity through dynamic branding and quality service. So they show how an SME with a robust business strategy can make a rapid progress only in a few years, right? By successfully exploiting its IP assets in strategic branding. They didn't sit on their laurels. So in 2019, they were more than 20 years in the business. They decided to revamp the brand image and also look into their commercialization strategy. So what they did was, like all companies, or if you want, everybody asking me, got grant? Yes, there's a lot of grant available in Singapore that you can actually tap into. And what they did was they relied on capability development grant, and it's a subsidy by MTI. And with that, at that point in time, they were able to build an IP portfolio, which probably previously they maybe didn't have, or it was scarce, and they wanted to strengthen it, right? They registered their new logo and also their mascot, and then they also registered their patent for customized gas monitoring invention.
Yep.
So with that, their brand equity increased, and their delivery service improved on a number of fronts, and they could differentiate themselves from their rivals, based on what they had. Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is a 4K study we share. I think there's one question regarding about the media side. How long does it take for this Lesco, right, create this Upin and Ipin?
I don't know.
How much cost they created? How much cost they put in to create these two characters?
As an animation studio, they probably created a number of media characters.
Good characters, yeah.
It's like you just need one to go viral, right? There's always that, right? So I think consistency is always the key. And keep creating, keep innovating, keep inventing. But you need to know when you have an upcoming product that's doing really, really well, you should then pour in your investment to try and make sure that it's protected and that you are able to leverage it to your max. Because sometimes it's the same thing. If you're a design company like Kev Kidston, they produce hundreds of over designs in a year. Do they then register the designs for all the designs? Not really. So I think one of the question was put forward to the general counsel for Kev Kidston and say, how do you know which to spend on? And the money, sometimes it's just it's a guessing game. And if you're long enough in the industry, you kind of can predict roughly whether this particular design and this particular product will hit the market big. And so they are very careful in terms of the particular design that they actually register. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any question from the audience?
At the moment, no. So.
Okay. Yep. So these are four case studies we shared. Let's me bring you through how do we go about tips. Okay. Before that, just take a look at these pictures. What do you see in the pictures? I think some of you have seen it during the conference when I talk about it. Yeah, can put a chat. What do you see? Do you see anything else? What do you see in the pictures? Okay. We see all the square, right? The straight line, the squares, the rectangles, of course, the colors, different colors, shade of grays. Other than these things that we see right on the surface, what else do you see? Can you see something else? Yeah. Can you see circles in these pictures? Chocolate bars, yes, I see chocolate bars as well. Can you see circles in this in these pictures? Circles. Yes. How many circles do you see? Drawers. Yeah, drawers. 2 rows. Yeah, there are 16 circles. Can you see 16 circles, all of you? I think on first glance, most of people will not be able to see it. And in fact, a lot of people take literally this as square, the rectangle. And it's the same thing when you look at IP also. And because everybody's busy in their daily work, right? So a lot of time I first do now 16. Yeah, I can see 16. There are 16 circles inside here. 16 circle. I can point out to you. Can you see this? This is my cursor. You can see it's a cursor. 1 circle, 2 circle, 3, 4. So 4 row, right? So 4 times 4 is 16 circle inside the pictures. If you look at this picture, when you don't ask yourself a question, are these circles inside? You won't be able to discover a circle, and you just take a look and you pass by. So sometimes that's what you as an owner of the company, you look at company, if you just take a cursory look, you won't sometimes discover there are actually a lot of IP that you can actually unearth them, and maybe you can turn it into something very different. It can even have a scale of business. This is why when I look at, just now somebody asked about character, right? How long does it take? What's the cost it take to create character, right? To me, it's not so much about the cost all the time. It's all depending on your creativity and your imagination. And this creativity and innovation came from where? Came from, if you're too busy on your daily operation, what happened? You won't be creative, you won't be imaginative to think out all these things, think things outside the box. So that's for owner, right? I always believe that sometimes when you take time, go and revisit the natures. You look at the Pokemon, look at Hello Kitty, Winnie the Pooh. Actually, a lot of this idea came from natures, where the people who came out the idea, they observe nature carefully. And when ideas struck them, sparked their head, this is how it came out, all this very nice character and bring out the imagination of them. So how do we go about it? If you want to use IP to scale a company, right? You need to take stocks. So I'll share with you some tools, but not all the tools. Although I put it as step, actually sometimes when I approach it is not in stepwise manner. We can approach them in totality as well. So I'm going to show you 4-step processes. Yeah, in how to go about it. First is basically quite important is to know your business. To know your IP, to know your business. So I like to revisit. I always like to revisit what we call internal value chain. This is a very old classical concept from Michael Porter, right? So Michael Porter is laid out this format. So we have primary value chain. Basically, it's from your sourcing, procurement, logistic, operations, all the way to keep creating value to the need of a customer. Then you have all this secondary value chain as a human resource technology. So what's important is you look at all the activity that your people are doing, the key activities. Then you take a closer look. Is there any IP involved when they do perform those activities? So IP in the 5 form that Esther shared with you, right? Patents, trademark, confidential info, copyright, and design. Yeah, just study each of them and to see whether can you find them. Just like just now I showed the picture, right? Look for a circle. So here you look for IP. So, and you then lay them down the IP in the different area, and look again whether this IP have you protected them. If this IP enable you to carry out those activities different from your competitor, these are IP that you should protect them because it create a business mode for you. Okay, at the same time, you got to look for why my company cannot scale up. Is it because some of this I lack of certain IP? Then you study again. Is there any IP that I think if I add it, it can help me to scale out the company? So the first step you want to do, review, look at your internal value chain to again understand what the IP you have. And amazingly, when you take a closer look, a lot of time often cannot, you can find some interesting IP just within the company. First, okay, second part, you want to look at the trend. I always believe even to scale a business big and high, always look for new trend to me. I like to look for new trend. So you can look for new trend, look at political, economical, social, technological. What are the trend right now, and what the future trend looks like, and how are they relevant to me, my business, and how can I adapt the business to capitalize on the trend? So currently there are many new trends, and this trend is going to be very steep curve up. Example, you talk about electric vehicle, right? Any of you are involved in electric vehicle, the value chain? Yeah. The electric vehicle is going to scale up very strong, very fast because of climate, global warming, right? So many countries are going to ban internal combustion engine vehicle by 2030. China, for example, Europe, for example. So this whole area is going to open up a lot of opportunity for companies. Second area, artificial intelligence, right? You can see the steep curve, the revenue growth is huge. And by 2030, actually, a lot of business are going to be in the AI area. And of course, there are other things, example, like renewable energy in the industry. Imagine that the whole earth, actually, you can tap from solar, right? About 10 to the power of 16 watt. And that's more than sufficient to power the current energy need of the earth. But unfortunately, we are only tapping probably about few percentage of the renewable energy. So there's a huge space there also. And space industry is heating up also. Every day, you can see a lot of rocket sending satellite up into the skies, especially those big US company. And it's going to be hot, especially using 3D printer to print rocket launcher and rockets. So again, it's a huge industry. So these are very new. And there are a lot of new players. You look at all the listed exchange, like Australia, US, you can see a lot of small little company pop up in all these spaces. So I can't find any company in Singapore in space technology at the moment, for example. Yeah, but they're popping up all over the place. Yeah, same thing for renewable energy. It's very few companies also. A lot of us actually stuck in the very traditional forms, which is very hard to scale. So second part is basically look at the trend, look at the industry that's emerging. So once you have that, right, you want to look at I call the industrial value chain. Yeah, you basically map up the upstream, from upstream, your supplier, and all the way to downstream customers. You map them out. At the same time, you want to look for also alternative products that fulfill the customer needs. So once you have the whole total thing mapped out, then you analyze within that value chain, is there any area that's highly profitable and very few players inside there? If you can pinpoint it, I think beautiful. You find a very sweet spot where the next part you want to do is then you look for pattern in the space. Yeah, you may have to perform what I call IP landscaping to look around. This one, usually we will work with some professional, especially the US side. We are very strong in performing the IP landscaping for each industry area, right? They can go zoom in and what are the patent there, who are the patent owner, and how strong is the patent, and which are the spot that there is not invention yet, where we can put some energy, creativity to create invention there. So there's a 4th step. And finally, you create a business model. So once you have all this information, you can actually define your business model, including all your IP portfolio. So with that, you create your investor deck, go and raise fund. And today, because the whole world is so rich with fund, you look at FDA, look at all the central bank, they're printing tons of money. And because the investor don't know where to put the money, what happened? They put a lot to the cryptocurrency, to the stock market, and driving them up a bubble. Even Dogecoin, right? Somebody created Dogecoin. It meant nothing, but now you look at the Dogecoin in terms of value is so high now. But in all this cryptocurrency, there's some value actually. Think about it. But simply because the market is flooded with money. Therefore, it's a good time for you to use IP to create business model and go and raise fund. So once you raise fund, of course, you have to implement your basically business model, right? Eventually, you must generate cash flow from your IP, just like what Pokemon, Hello Kitty, they do, right? Today, they are billions-dollar company. So with the cash flow generated, it can go back again to look for new IP. So it's basically a process. Yeah, the whole thing centric on your mind is basically keep creating, owning, protecting, exploiting IP, make it into your whole new value within the company. Yeah, so this is how we can actually create a commercialization model. So it's a 4-step process, but don't see them in linear form. When you do it, you probably have to do a lot of iteration, and if possible, try to have independent thinker to work with you. People who are maybe have not conflict with you, but they can actually share some more view, different perspective with you when you embark on this IP commercialization journey. Okay, I'll just stop here for a while. Is there any question that you might want to ask me? Yeah, Dogecoin has no value created jokes, but now it's worth $1 billion market cap. It just went up 10 times, by the way. Just over the last 1 month, it went up 10 times. So you $1 put inside there, now you have $10, you can sell your Dogecoin. Okay, no question. Esther, you want to continue with the next part, the last part?
Okay, yeah, so I think to just tie, we don't have that much time left, but I'm just going to breeze through a few points that we wanted to share on this journey, because this is, again, commercialization is like what Jeremy shared. It's not a linear form, right? And you go through a few reiterations and then to really find out what suits you. And also, as part of IPCC, really our vision and our mission and what we want to do is we want to create sort of a seamless ecosystem, because you can't succeed on your own, right? You need to find, for example, the first one would be, coming to my point, finding the right partner to build a successful ecosystem. And I think that's why, as part of the IP strategy 2030 point, they've also recognized that they need to build the ecosystem. And as in the private sector, we will try to build it, and that's what we're trying to do with IPCC, right? To match the different stakeholders within an IP commercialization ecosystem. You have your inventors, because sometimes your inventors may not necessarily be the right person to commercialize because they may not have, business acumen, right? You sometimes you get like people who are from, A-star, all this inventor, their sole job is to do R&D. Just come up with ideas, just come up with inventions, far. But then you take it off, spin off, and sometimes you realize that, they can only take the companies so far, then you need to find right partners to be able to take the particular product, particular invention of the company to a greater heights, right? That's why then you might want to find investors that may be, and then you have to plan for your exit point. If you know that you're not going to be the person that is able to have that capability to take the company further to where he is, but if you are the inventor, then perhaps you can still get some royalties from them as they commercialize it and still stay in the game. So how you strategize your strategy should also encompass that. And your I said your investors, your inventors, and then of course your people who are experts in the particular field to come alongside you and help you along this journey. And with that, then you have sort of like an ecosystem, and that's what we're trying to do as well with the networking around with Ariba, with Brands for Good. And as you can tell, we are all from different professions, and when we actually put our heads together, we realize that we are be able to create more value to help companies in actually coming up with something that's really useful and not just looking at one angle and forgetting the other. So like I said, business matching can be tough. Finding the right partner can be tough. Finding a right local partner, and I think it's important to also, if you're looking into going overseas, that's where I think you also need to join networks that are beyond just Singapore. For example, like Ariba, where you have trusted networks overseas, and the more you network, then you will be able to find trusted people who whom you never know whether or not you might be able to go into a business relationship, or if they're not the right person, they may be able to show you someone from the local scene that might be able to benefit you. The next one, we're talking about finding the right funding. And again, I think the question is cost. Always is a cost, and especially if you're an SME, or like your startup, or you're bootstrapping, you're very conscious of your cost. There are many, as a Singapore company, we'll be very grateful and thankful that there are actually many grants and support from the government. Especially if you're embarking right now, you're thinking of, I've never done an IP exercise, I've never done a commercialization strategy exercise. With the recent push, even by government, in terms of IP strategy and how they can help companies go overseas and to develop an IP strategy, you can tap on the grants that are available. There are many grants that are available under this strategy grant, the MRA grant, market readiness grant. Those are some of the things that you can tap on for support to help you in finding the right people to come in to assist you in this journey. And then obviously, like what Maybank also shared today, bank loans, right? With low interest rates. And the recent help that they have also launched, those are things that you should be looking out for, and to see how you can sort of leverage on those things to help you with your funds. Even you can even think of an equity or share swap model with investors. And when you're going to pitch, for example, if you don't yet have a strategy or you don't yet have the funds, bake your costs of your applications or your things like that into your model. And when you then get funding, you say, okay, these funds are going to be used for these particular purposes, because especially patents, sometimes it can get quite costly. And if you're able to justify the cost to your investors, then then you can show that you have some kind of IP acumen and savviness, and you understand the IP game. They're more than willing to fund you and say, let's make sure that this is well protected.
Yeah. Can I just add one more point here?
Go ahead.
You have very great idea on IP, right? You should go to US and raise funds. Just like I mentioned, their market, the entire market cap is about 50 trillion, right? Singapore is about 700 billion only. So locally, it's very hard to raise funds in Singapore currently. So the best is to go to US. Yeah.
And I think also then you need to think about the different types of funding. Do you want a VC funding? Do you want an angel fund? Funding in different levels of stage of your company, and because the different investors may have different levels of involvement in the business day to day. So those are the things that you need to think about as well. What kind of model you want to look out for. And then the next point is finding the right people. And as I mentioned, right, who to run the business. CEO with little to no experience of running a business. I also touched on the point of inventors sometimes not being the right people. They might be the people to kickstart the thing, but if they don't have a vision in the long run, they might bring the company to a halt. So these people are the ones that are going to be your intellectual capital, right? They are the people that they are going to further innovate. And so finding the right people in your company, hiring the right people in your company is also crucial. And I think sometimes as a founder, you also must know that you may not be the brightest person in the company, but then hiring the right people will be able to cover for your lack, and with a good team you will be able to scale, right? Even if you have a good idea but you don't have a good team, it's also very hard. And I think for finding the right model, and as I already touched a little bit about this, and you need to take a look at what business model that actually suits you. And there are many ways of commercializing. You see, obviously, once you identify your assets already, then you got to think about whether a licensing model will be better to suit your company, or a franchising model, depending on what type of IP assets you are going to commercialize. And some people want control, so they want to maintain the quality, so they would rather go for a franchise, because then they can control the quality and make sure that their franchisees follow a strict SOP. But if not, they're just wanting to license purely the brand, for example, and allow the the licensee a little bit more freedom. If there's no quality control involved, then maybe licensing model will be a better option for you, because then you don't have to spend so much money and cost, right, to get some of these franchise registered in certain countries. You might want to think about, whether you should spin off a company, or do a JV, and so on and so forth, in terms of then who will own the IP rights for that particular asset. Does it still belong to the holding company, and then the holding company license it to the JV company to have more control? And then you got to think about, if there are further R&D, who will then own the innovation rights, right, of that particular patent, or that particular new brands and new trademarks that they are going to be birthed forth from the JV, for example. So those are things that you need to think about as well. And these are all business decisions, actually. Nobody knows your business better than yourself. But then having sort of an expert from the outside, like Jeremy shared, may be able to give you ideas that you might not thought about, like, not seeing the circle, for example, that will trigger you to think about new things. And of course, if you, again, whether or not you want to acquire IP, or you'd rather produce it in-house. So it all depends on which stage of the company are you at. Yeah. And lastly, I think finding the right IP strategy. And I think I've mentioned this already: lack of funding. Get investors to help you out in that. And also, I think it's important to devise a part-by-part strategy, because sometimes, obviously, everybody asks me, how can I cannot patent the whole wide world, I cannot trademark the whole wide world. Of course you can't, but you can do it in stages. And that's where actually we can come in to see, okay, how you want to grow the business, where you want to go in the next few years, what are the important markets for you, and then we can sort of expand, and you can strengthen your portfolio as you grow. In tandem with your business strategy. Of course, there's no one-size-fits-all model, and is very customized based on your business goals and your business needs. So that's all from me, and from Jeremy and myself. Are there any questions? So I hope that at the very least, our sharing today it would actually inspire you, if you've not thought about IP, to actually start thinking about those things within your business strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy and Esther. All give the two of them a round of applause, please, and a high five or a little symbol on the screen to actually show appreciation to both Jeremy and Esther for today, and then for sharing the time. I'm sure everybody actually has a lot of questions, just that being Singaporeans and ASEAN, we probably want a more quieter time to ask you those questions. And hence, just a gentle reminder, everyone, that we will have our networking sessions in breakout rooms after this. So Esther and Jeremy will stay around, and I think, Furious, if you can, let's put Esther and Jeremy in different rooms, so that when we do our breakout sessions in the smaller groups, you all can ask questions to individually to them or what. At this point, I like to really take this time to really thank everyone for being here today. It's 3:52. We do have time for questions. So if there's anyone comfortable in opening up your cameras and asking a direct question to both Esther or Jeremy, guys.
There's a question on by Yu Cheng. For some integrators doing Industry 4.0 solutions for clients, able to find IP which the company can own or apply for? Jeremy?
I'm sure there are always something outside that we can find, right? But we need to do we call IP landscaping to figure out what people what kind of patents are outside there. So once we understand that, then we can see how to do it.
Yeah, so I think part of the process of IP landscaping is actually also to figure out what industry are you at, and then they will sort of find out what are the other sort of related patterns or somewhat in the same field, to be able to give you a feel of what's out there. that also will actually help you to see what are the gaps in the industry, right? So there are two things. One, you might then say, oh, actually, well, this particular technology is quite interesting. It might be helpful to us. Then, you may be able to spark certain collaborations, and there are avenues that you can tap into, IP banks that are already they have ready patents there. Because sometimes you'll never know whether the owner wants to license or not, and whether they are interested to actually license it out to you or sell it out to you. But, IP banks, and through all this kind of IP hatch and all this kind of, these are already identified as the owner are already ready to say, okay, I want to collaborate with you. So, you can go and check out on those avenues yourself, or you can go and get to do an IP the patent landscaping and see what are the gaps in the industry. Then you think, oh, then this is the area that has not really no invention yet, right? You see a gap, and you may want to say, I want to go into this space.
Yeah, I think the key in IP game, right? Don't make assumption first. Go and do a search. Go and check. Just like before, I came to know people patented repurposed drug, and the IPP is actually a drug that has been there for 70 years.
Yeah.
But then this PAR is able to patent it for a new indication. That means actually there's a lot of existing invention that you can take a look and see, can you modify into another form and go for patent also. So nobody knows. You just have to do research. Be open-minded, be flexible, and look around carefully, and do an IP search, IP landscaping. You might discover something that is very useful for you.
There is another question from Chin Chuan on your views on PetSnap.
Okay, I personally have not used PetSnap, so I can't comment on how robust the system is. But definitely PetSnap is one of the many tools that you can use for IP landscaping. Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, Peter. Hi, Peter. Good to see you. He's asking questions for Jeremy about the US market for VC and funding.
I think there's one initiative in Singapore. What they do is our government is looking for a billionaire to come and reside in Singapore, so they can be an angel investor. So there's a key thing that government is doing. I do know that they actually map out a space near Sentosa area. Hopefully, all these rich people can come here. Then we will have more interesting thing to pitch to. I think one key thing is because in Singapore, right, a lot of these rich people, they earn their money through very hard way. So sometimes asking to park away their money is very difficult. But US is very different because they're a rich market. A lot of people make very quick money. So they're more willing to actually fund a lot of startups in US, compare more easier. So second area we can look for fund to me is Indonesia.
Why?
Interesting, right? Because I think there are a lot of people who has fund and they want to bring the fund outside of Indonesia. Same thing for China also. They want to bring fund out of China to elsewhere. So these are two pockets of area where you can find good investor. If your idea is very good and they can see that it can be a good IP that can roll out worldwide, can scale up worldwide.
So get money from Indonesia but
yeah,
the is not very robust
and that's why they always constantly look out for idea, because in Indonesia what I find is a lot of traditional business, not so much of those more new kind of business. So a lot of these rich people, they are looking for good idea, concrete idea, concept that can be commercialized worldwide.
Can I just add on that, Jeremy?
Sure. Yes.
Is there an issue that there's a lot of so-called old money that is traditional in property, and
yes,
and it's difficult to convince investors on any new business? And I'm not talking really about AI, but it's still not so, let's say, more in a converged digital and real economy business. What do you think?
Those people, you know, about converting from property to intellectual property, I agree with you totally. Very difficult to get them to come up money and invest. Why? Because their mindsets, they believe in something tangible. There's this old mindset. But you look at the whole world, right, where the in terms of the balance of the fund, right, this area is no longer the key one. Yeah, it's shrinking. And there are a lot of rich people, actually, they become rich because of this intellectual property, the new way of, the new kind of business. So I believe it's where you find such people. If you approach a REITs where they, in the past, they have been investing in properties, I think unlikely you can get fund out of them unless you suggest some technology, let's say real estate technology, property technology that can help them to drive traffic to the shopping mall. Example, then I think they will take a look. It must be very relevant to how to enhance the property value. Then they'll be more keen. But something not related to their property, it's very hard to ask them to fund you. Hope I answered that question.
Okay, I'm going to stop everyone here because it's already 3:01 and we want to sort of keep timing. So I promised everyone that, okay, we end at 4, but we will still keep our networking. So Jeremy and Esther will still be around, right? Esther?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
We'll be around for a while.
Yeah.
I do want to make a quick commercial break for Jeremy and Esther. They have been quite kind to join us today and also share with them. But IP commercialization is also a grantable project under EDG with Enterprise Singapore. There is IP commercialization work, and I believe that Esther and Jeremy are actually doing this as part of the consultancy work under Harry Elias. So if you guys are sort of keen to that, you can always explore it with Esther or Jeremy. And if you're, I mean, I understand that patent landscaping alone can cost upwards of $30,000 just to search for patents, and that can be quite a costly exercise. But it is still a worthwhile endeavor because we are still in very, very early stage of IP in Singapore and in Asia. As you can see, money is not here yet. But that doesn't mean that the money will not be here. We all seen the big picture, right? We've got family offices setting up here. There are 200 family offices that were set up here alone in the last year or something like that. We've almost doubled our money. So all monies are coming back. People are parking their monies here. And at some point, they're going to realize they need something to invest in, right? And we are at the early stages of that. So if you guys are looking at developing something and then you have new ideas and all that, it's time to pick up those drawer plans and start planning for it because it's going to be very exciting for the next few years.
Yeah, and I think I want to add also, I think there is a push for more internationalization beyond the Singapore market, because obviously Singapore market is very small, and the government really wants local Singapore brands to think about internationalization. And the moment you talk about internationalization, definitely you have to play the IP game, because that's where the global trend is. That's where when you go to that international level, that's where you need to be at. Yeah.
Right. So thank you all for coming today and appreciating your time. I hope that you've enjoyed our Emerge Stronger series with Brands for Good. I hope that you also will stay in touch. We've posted up the links to our chat groups for Brands for Good 3. Do join us in our continuous conversation on helping to build SMEs within Singapore and helping you to be not only a successful brand, but also brands for good, right? So that's something that we also want to push. So thank you all for being here today, and don't leave yet. We've still got our open camera networking, and then my guys will send you out there shortly. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure. Who's that?
Fabian.
Oh, hi, Fabian.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to check. So if let's say we are dealing with startups, like we are a startup, right? All this cost involved in this landscape research, IP landscape research and everything is quite costly. So as a startup, at which stage should we consider this, and how much cost do we have to cater for?
Are you looking at patents? Do you have inventions? Is that what your startup is about?
No, usually probably more towards the tech side.
Tech side.
Patent landscaping.
It wouldn't be patent landscaping, right? I think if it's for tech.
It's a tech side. Yeah, it may not be patentable, depending on what kind of tech you're looking at. If it's purely software, then it might be a little bit tough.
It's easy.
So, yeah, so I mean, we can have a separate conversation that we can look into it and what would be the best, because obviously not everybody needs to do a patent landscape. It really depends on what your company is heavy, what are your IP assets. Then you see whether you need to do a patent landscape. Patent landscaping is after you have identified whether or not you have a patent and whether or not you need to do that. That is not the starting point. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Jeremy, you want to chime in on that?
I think I totally agree with Esther. Actually, the key to me is if they say your entire business model is going to be based on your technology, right? Yeah. And you think that there might be technology outside there, and that may compete against you. Of course, it's worth the while to do the IP landscaping. Yeah, if your entire business model is going to be based on IP, because if they say you don't get IP to protect you, it's very quickly somebody just come in and take over your whole business model.
What if there's some knowledge base behind the idea that we're actually working on?
Knowledge base. It means some knowledge behind this technology. Is it?
Yes,
The knowledge you can't protect knowledge in that way, so you must put into something visible.
Yeah.
So, example, copyright. Right? Copyright is basically expression of your knowledge, your idea into a form in the media. So that's copyright. So you still need to put into a visible form where people can see it.
And that also, enforcing it is you have to show that you actually copied lah. So that's a different strategy altogether. How you sometimes put gems, right, in their source codes that you all don't see, right? But then when it gets copied, then this particular thing that has no meaning one gets copied, then you know that they actually copied.
Oh, I do have one more thing to add, which Furious, there is a download link for today's slides by Jeremy and Esther. That will put up the slides for the QR codes. Now, this year, something different from our previous Emerge Stronger. We're not sharing the decks to everybody. We're making sure people stay behind for our workshops. And only if you stay to the end, then we'll give you a QR code to fill up a form to download the link, because we really want to sort of have everyone's commitment to be a part of this journey with us. So, Furious, are you there? Are you able to sort of put up the QR code so that everyone can sort of scan that to download the slides? Okay, there you go. So if you can sort of scan the QR code right now, I mean, we'll put it up for a minute, and as we put it up, we can answer one question. Anyone else have a question to ask? While if those of you who sort of want to download the QR code, the deck today, you can scan the QR code and download it. In the meanwhile, questions?
Okay, maybe I just say something here. Just on the case study we share, right? Okay, you notice PAR Rex are listed companies. So I'm not encouraging you to buy them. Just a disclaimer here. I just use it as an illustration for case study.